En estos dos segmentos de video que te presentaré a continuación, el economista Thomas Sowell hablará sobre temas como las diferencias económicas entre hombres y mujeres y cuál es el efecto cuando el gobierno quiere tomar las riendas a fin de dar fin a la desigualdad. Thomas Sowell es reconocido como un destacado economista, pensador y escritor estadounidense, cuyo impacto se ha sentido en diversos ámbitos como la economía, la política, la sociología y la historia. Nacido el 30 de junio de 1930 en Carolina del Norte, Sowell se distingue por su enfoque práctico, su profunda capacidad de análisis y su habilidad para transmitir ideas complejas de manera comprensible para una amplia audiencia. Mira los dos segmentos que te presentaré y dime qué opinas.
Well, you're right. I'm going to quote you again. Among the many factors which influence male-female economic differences, the most elusive is employer discrimination.
Yes, that when you correct for all the various factors, such as the number of hours worked, the continuous employment versus taking a few years out to have children and so on, you take all that into account, the differences between men and women become quite trivial. If you look at the academic world, or as far back as 1969, women who had never married and who had earned higher incomes than men who had never married. They became a tenured professor at a higher rate than men who had never married. And then later on, if you look at the general population, if you take the women who are past the childbearing years and who work continuously, their incomes were higher than men who would work continuously and so on. So the difference is that not that the employer is paying them differently, but that they have different characteristics. So
the central variable in explaining economic differences between men and women is not employer discrimination, not the rise of feminism. It's that women, it's child rearing, marriage and child rearing. That's the variable. As that varies, a women's arrival or participation rate in high-level occupations varies with that. That's
Absolutely.
the okay. Now, in principle, you note, family responsibilities could be perfectly evenly divided between fathers and mothers. But that isn't the way it has worked in practice. Quote, I'm quoting you again, since economic consequences follow from practices rather than principles, the asymmetrical division of domestic responsibilities produces male-female differences in income, close quote. Question, what are the policy implications of that? If we become fixed on eliminating male-female income differences, is it the case that the only choice, the only route for doing that is to involve the government in redesigning the very nature of the family?
Well,
or am I leaping to a melodramatic conclusion?
No. Yeah, and logically that's certainly true. However, not all domestic responsibilities can be shared equally, such as having babies, which is not an inconsequential thing since the existence of the human race depends on it. But what it means is that women make choices that make a lot of sense for them. For example, the choice of occupations, that women tend not to go into occupations in which there's a very high rate of obsolescence. I mean, and if you're a computer engineer and you take 5 years out to have a child and have the child up to the age where you can put him in daycare, well, my gosh, the world has changed.
Your job is gone.
You'd have to start way back. On the other hand, if you become a librarian, you become a teacher, other occupations like that, then you can take your 5 years off, come back and pick up pretty much where you left off.
Como puedes notar, Sowell aborda las diferencias económicas entre hombres y mujeres desde una perspectiva que enfatiza la importancia de comprender las causas subyacentes y considerar una variedad de factores y, en otras ocasiones, él ha expresado escepticismo sobre ciertas políticas que buscan abordar estas disparidades mediante la acción afirmativa o la discriminación positiva. Vamos con el otro segmento.
I think we're talking at cross purposes. On the one hand, we're talking about results that we're hoping for. On the other hand, we're talking about processes that we're setting in motion. You're saying, should we hope for certain kinds of lessening of inequality and so on? The real question, the political question is, shall we set in motion certain processes because we hope for that? And do those processes enhance or reduce freedom? And I think the argument that Milton is making, certainly the argument that I would make, is that the attempt at doing these things, and it doesn't really matter, it's a complete straw man to talk about absolute inequality. No, not
yes,
at all.
Yes, it is,
no.
absolutely. Throughout the film, this is the straw man he brings up in order to say how ridiculous to have absolute equality. And then he goes on to say how ridiculous to have absolute homogenization as well.
As a result, you see, that you set up processes whose end result may not be any more or less inequality than exists now, but the question is, those processes may indeed reduce freedom greatly. I would go beyond the question of equality and put it more generally, that any process to ascribe any status to any group of people, equality, inferiority, superiority, must necessarily reduce freedom, because whatever the government wishes to ascribe to any group, whatever place, to use the phrase that was very common in the South, that blacks should have their place, whatever place the government is going to assign to people, that place will not coincide, that place will not coincide either with what all those people are doing or with how others perceive all those people, because there's too much diversity among human beings. To maintain any system of ascribed status from the top is going to mean reducing people's freedom across the spectrum. That's the point.
People have an ascribed status. It isn't as if government, by its intervention, creates it. People are born into this world in a given sector of a society, and many of them are born at the bottom of the society. The argument about equality of results was an argument that was linked to equality of opportunity. People recognized that unless there was a degree of equality in a degree of enough food, enough security, access to education, unless these things were available to all children, then equality of opportunity was merely a mockery. That's why equality of results became an issue, and it became an issue for black people in the United States, and they expressed their concern, whatever the opinion
You expressed
polls,
it, damn it, look. No, they did not. They did not.
They expressed
Francis, finish it and then reply.
They expressed their will by their extraordinary participation in a protest movement that began in the late 1950s and didn't end until the 1960s. Intellectuals were not in that protest movement.
You want me to answer, or you want to keep
Black people
going?
were in that protest.
You want me to answer?
I finished.
Yes.
Good. Black people have never supported, for example, affirmative action, quotas, anything of that sort. Wherever polls have been taken of black opinion on such matters of should people be paid equally or should there be this or that, black people have never taken a position that you described. So it is not a question of what black people chose to do. It's what you choose to put in the mouths of black people. It is what you choose to project. It is not what any black people have ever said anywhere that you can put your finger on.
It's what you choose to put into the mouth of the pollsters, as far as I can see. Look at the leadership of the black community.
Like most people, I have never seen a pollster.
If you look at the leadership of the black...
But I want to go back to I want to carry it back to the earlier point. Number one, there's no question about what equality of results, if it comes about through a framework of freedom, is a desirable result. Number two, I argue in the film, I've argued here, that in point of fact, you get greater equality of actual results by a system under which people are free to achieve unequal results. That for the poor people of the world that Francis Fox Piven was talking about, the most effective mechanism for enabling them to improve their status is not a governmental program which seeks to ascribe to them certain positions, which seeks to provide them with certain goods and services, but a governmental program which tries to eliminate arbitrary barriers to advancement. I would say that in this world, the greatest source of inequality has been special privileges granted by government. That government, you may talk a great deal, there may be a lot of talk about how we're going to eliminate inequality. But if you look at, go back to your case of Britain, is there any doubt that one of the effects of governmental intervention in Britain has been to create new opportunities for special classes? That the way to get wealthy in a society that supposedly is aiming at equality, that the way to get wealthy is to get a special government permit to to get foreign exchange, or to import goods, or to, in this country, to set up a television station.
Sowell ha expresado en muchas ocasiones también mucho escepticismo sobre las políticas que buscan abordar la desigualdad económica a través de la redistribución de la riqueza o la imposición de impuestos más altos a los más ricos. Argumenta que tales políticas pueden desincentivar la creación de riqueza y socavar la libertad económica, lo que en última instancia podría ser perjudicial para el crecimiento económico y el bienestar general. Por otro lado, él afirma que es importante distinguir entre desigualdad de resultados y desigualdad de oportunidades. La desigualdad de oportunidades implica barreras injustas que impiden que las personas alcancen su potencial. Por otro lado, la desigualdad de resultados simplemente refleja diferencias naturales entre individuos y grupos. Sowell ha sostenido que enfocarse en la igualdad de oportunidades es más relevante que tratar la igualdad de resultados. Aunque reconoce la existencia de desigualdades económicas, él también destaca los avances históricos en términos de movilidad económica y reducción de la pobreza en muchos países, señalando que la libertad económica y el capitalismo han sido fundamentales en la mejora del bienestar de millones de personas. ¿Y tú qué opinas? Déjamelo saber en los comentarios. Y aquí culmina este video. Si te gustó, dale like, coméntalo y compártelo. Gracias, hasta luego.